Welcome back to class, and don't forget to subscribe and share video of easy pass with colleagues. For this class we shall be continuing on the topic we started some time ago, which is nutrition. But this part of nutrition will just be dwelling on feeding relationship. In a layman's way, or in a scientific way rather, I would have called this topic symbiosis. Feeding symbiosis. So it's more or less like relationship between two organisms with respect to feeding. Relationship between two organisms with respect to feeding. So when two organisms are involved and they are feeding is involved in the process, we want to say it's a kind of symbiosis. So feeding relationship is actually of different types. We list them and discuss them briefly in this class and give examples of organisms that have this type of relationship. The first one I will mention is mutualism. Mutualism is a kind of feeding relationship in which two organisms are involved, and these two organisms are benefiting from each other. So another way of saying it, feeding relationship involving two different organisms in which the two organisms are benefiting from each other. We have many examples of mutualism in nature. One of them is mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza is a kind of relationship between fungi and the roots of higher plants. In fact, the word myco is from the word mycology, which is the study of fungi. So fungi in the root of higher plants is called mycorrhiza. When both of them benefiting, because the fungi will obtain glucose from the roots of the plant, while the plant will also obtain nutrients from the fungi. And that brings me to something to also mention in the course of this class. Fungi are not autotrophic organisms. Fungi are not autotrophic organisms. They don't have the ability to manufacture their food themselves. They feed on already manufactured food. They obtain their food from other organisms. They cannot manufacture their food themselves. They don't have what we call chlorophyll, and they cannot manufacture food on themselves. So that means they are not autotrophs. They are heterotrophs. So mycorrhiza is the first example. It's actually a relationship between fungi and the roots of higher plants. Let me just put a sign equal to fungi plus roots of plants. With this, now even the word rhiza is from the word rhizome. So mycorrhiza is actually fungi and the roots of plants. The second example I will give under mutualism is what we call leaching. Leaching is a relationship between fungi and algae. Algae are more of green plants. So when algae and fungi are coming together, we have what we call leaching. Okay, leaching. Sorry for that. Leaching. We have leaching, and this leaching is a relationship between fungi and algae. Relationship between fungi and algae. And such relationship is also referred to as mutualistic feeding relationship. Now, the second example I will put on the board is what we call commensalism. 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 In this kind of relationship, only one organism is benefiting, the other organism is unaffected. So we have, I'll put an equal to sign here also, because so just as I have, okay, two organisms, yes, two different organisms. One organism benefits, one organism benefits, the other is unaffected. The other is unaffected. So we have two organisms involved in this case also. One is benefiting, the other one is unaffected. And we have examples of this also. A very good example of this is the relationship between shark and remora fish. Just as we used to say it, the remora fish will obtain leftover food from shark, and the shark is not affected in this case. The shark is not affected in this case. We have some epiphytic plant also, epiphytes. Some epiphytes living on bigger trees, and they are not affecting the plant in the bigger plant in any way. We also have that as a commensal relationship. The third type of relationship I want to put on the board is parasitism. Now, parasitism. In the case of parasitism, two different organisms are also involved. One is benefiting, the other is actually affected negatively. So parasitism is a feeding relationship between two organisms in which one is living in or on the other and benefiting at the expense of the other. So parasitism is a feeding relationship in which two different organisms are involved, and one is living on the other, living and feeding in or on the other at the expense of the other. So if I want to break it down, feeding relationship, a relationship between two organisms, one is affected, one is affected negatively, the other is benefiting, the other is benefiting. The one affected is actually called the host, while the one that is benefiting is called the parasite. The host and the parasite. So the parasite will live in or on the host, feeding on the host. So it's a feeding relationship between the host and parasite, in which the parasite live in or on the host at the expense of the host. Now when the parasite is living on the host, parasites on hosts, we call that ectoparasite. Ectoparasites. So the parasite in this case will be ectoparasite. When the parasite is in the host, that becomes the parasite becomes endoparasite. So we have two types of parasites. We have the endoparasite and the ectoparasite, and we have so many examples. So for the ectoparasite, we can be talking about lice living in the hair of human being, lice ectoparasites, you have lice, you have ticks. These are examples of ectoparasites. They live on the host, obtaining their nutrient from the host. Endoparasites, on the other hand, we have endoparasites. We have tapeworm, whether the Taenia saginata or the Taenia solium. Tapeworm. We also have the intestinal worm. That's the ascaris. They live inside the host. We also have other parasites that are plasmodium, just like we have the plasmodium species. The examples of endoparasite. They live inside the host, feeding at the expense of the host. Endoparasite lives inside the host, feeding at the expense of the host. So most time what we have is to give example or explain the type of feeding relationship between two organisms. Why those ones that feed on dead decayed organism, we generally refer to those ones as saprophytism or saprophytes. So the fourth one is saprophyte or saprophytism. So it's just feeding on dead, feeding on decaying materials. Feeding on decaying materials. So we have examples of organisms exhibiting saprophytic mode of feeding. We have bacteria, could be one. Bacteria, they are saprophytes. Even some of these are fungi. Fungi are good examples of saprophytes, then etc. With this, I believe we have been able to do justice to some of the feeding relationship that we have in heterotrophic organism. In the next class, we shall be looking at other aspects of feeding, such as the nutrition in plants, which is photosynthesis, and we'll also be looking at, in subsequent classes, nutrition in animals. Thank you.